So welcome to that little workshop. I hope you have enough time because, to be honest, I wanted to make it quite short in the beginning. And then I realized today when I had a consultation about MAP, there were some questions that were exactly addressing what we are doing today. Then I realized, well, when people don't know why they need to be able to read facial expressions, I need to make it bigger. That's what I did. So I was working until an hour before we started today. And that's just an explanation. Usually don't do that because, well, we never know when we see it the next time. Everything I present here, when you see the pictures and when you see all the things that I'm using, most of them are based on Wholeception, which is an invention by Dirk Eilert, who is a German trainer. And he developed that, not everything on his own, but he developed it further. And he is using things like an emotional compass and so on, who are fantastic tools. And I don't know if there is any tool that is more advanced than this one. So just take that in consideration. Have you ever experienced a situation when you just didn't know what was going on the other side, as if there were some blinders or something, or you couldn't see the facial expressions, or you didn't know, you saw something, but you were not sure, you couldn't really address it, as if there was just, it was hidden somehow. And then you lost a relationship, a business, or something else. Has that happened to you? And if so, just raise your hand so I see it for those who are on camera. Thank you, Bonnie. So this is a situation where sometimes we would love to know more, to see more, but we just don't see it. So Darwin already said at his time that facial movements reveal thoughts and intentions. That's interesting. Also intentions of a person more than any word can do. In the US, there was also a scientist who was trying to find out more about what Darwin said. And he also developed a kind of a system to identify facial expressions. I'm just looking for its name at the moment. I just forgot it. But has any one of you seen Lie to Me, which is a series of movies? And Lie to Me is based on the work of that scientist, which basically goes back to Charles Darwin. Now, the science behind Wholeception, and that's important to me, but it's also important to those who developed it. It is based on more than 1,200 studies, not just single studies, but also meta-studies, which means a meta-study sometimes is compounding several studies at a time. So you can potentially, make it by 2 or by 3, which is the definite foundation of what we are talking about. And often I hear people talk about, well, there was this person who is talking about the position of his feet, an FBI person, and he is using that as an indication for the person who is lying or whatever, which is, well, somehow strange. Well, there is also no science behind of that. Dirk Eilert, who developed that, was about 10 years just, bringing studies together and analyzing them to know what is going on. And I'm using part of it because I'm a licensed trainer of him. And with that, using that license, I can show you what I have here. Now, realistic workshop expectations today. Although I want to make it quick going through, we are going really deep because this is mission critical to your success. It is advanced, so it's also not so easy. But when you go through that and you understand, and I would even empower you to watch the replay on YouTube, then again, it will increase your communication skills because you identify the emotions on people's faces. And for your future, the outcome is that you will be able to connect on a much deeper emotional level with your clients than you are until today. So I hope this is going to be a wake-up call, because it also gives you the ability to identify when someone potentially is lying to you or something that is not correct. We do not go deep into lying. That would be a separate workshop. But you will see things that you were not able to see until today. So today you will benefit when you are somewhere in transition as an entrepreneur or with what you are doing with MAP, or when you're going for leadership. Also, potentially, if you want to grow your business, if you're a solopreneur or a coach, a speaker, trainer, marketer. Well, in fact, the ability, these skills are helpful for everyone. Although it is always said, don't use that, everyone, and so, but in fact, we need that. And we always try even to teach and train not only our children, but also younger people, because it makes a difference when they know it and when they see it. Well, so today, you will, after that, when we went through, you will be able to connect with even more authenticity because you're able also to watch yourself. In German, it's called mimic resonance. It's the skill to see or to feel what your mimic is doing in your face. And you can identify, oh, that was not a good thing that I did that. So you can potentially even change it, which will increase results also. We will not go too deep into body language today, potentially. But body language is also a pattern. What we are talking here about is patterns, pattern recognition. It's similar to playing chess. Pattern recognition means, in the end, someone is using small gestures or big gestures, is loud or powerful with the voice like I am at the moment because I'm presenting, or is more loud, not so loud, is more like introvert and smaller. And so we know all of that, but we usually cannot really identify what does it mean. And knowing what is going on in another person, you could be able to close without feeling pushy or manipulative. And it's never about manipulation. And I really want to point that out. It's never about manipulation, although you could potentially use it, but that's not the idea. Not at all. So here we are in an environment where it's about generating passive income. So it's about making money. Now, to make money and to become independent, that also needs to be able to build trust. Now, you see me here presenting you, and you might ask you, yeah, why should I care? Why should you care about what I'm talking about? And I want to make it really short. My father, coming from Austria, he is from a generation after Second World War. Well, in fact, as a child, he was still in World War II. He had to watch a situation where his brother had to kill a Russian soldier because this one was threatening his mother. And well, he faced some other incredible things, which I never knew until a few years before he died. I just didn't know. But it had a huge impact on him. And in fact, it had a huge impact on me. So sometimes he was really hard on me, and I couldn't understand why. I didn't know why. And it's like as if there were a code that I could not read or see. And it took me literally 40 years, no, even more, to see kind of through the matrix, to see through the code, and to watch people. But sometimes the result was that I was a loner. And today, I feel during COVID times, that was great. I didn't have to go out. I felt comfortable. Although I like laughing a lot. And you see me here as a clown with my wife when I was in Costa Rica, clowning with Patch Adams, the doctor, the real doctor, Patch Adams. And that was, I think that was the most amazing week I ever had because we were just funny and laughing for a whole week. It was just, wonderful. Well, of course, I did other things. World champion in Korean sword art. But for me, the sword is the symbol of making decisions. And that's why I'm holding the sword like this. I'm giving you the sort of making good decisions, which also means you have the knowledge to do that. That's just a short version. My mentors, this is Dirk Eilert, who invented the whole thing, and my teacher in Switzerland, who is a very skilled person, doctor in psychology of Harvard, Mike Werder. So they were having a big impact on me. And there's more to be seen than what you think you see. Because what you see when you are not trained, you cannot see the things in the faces of others. So when you start to change the way you see things and to perceive on an emotional level, we say here with your heart, on an emotional level, things start to seem to be totally different. And I tell you something, I promise you something. When you, there's a writing mistake, Wholeception. When you are through that, you will not see the world the same way until you saw it today. So, okay, I have to go back to the presentation. So the question I got today is, where can you apply that, reading facial expressions? Well, literally everywhere. When you are in a business negotiation, or when you are presenting your map system to someone else, when you are in a restaurant and you look at the servant or at your wife or your husband, when you are in a situation in business, and you see here compared to the picture that I showed you before offline, that's a different way. And also, of course, when you are with doctors and nurses and so on. So, in fact, in family, in relationships, you can use that in every situation in your life. Although, and I must mention that, it is a matter of training. You will start to see things now, but it is important that you start to train, that you look at certain things in order to be able to identify the ways emotion show up in faces. And there are some fundamental principles. We see here a scheme of the brain, but we need to know that micro expressions, the small expressions that come directly from the emotional brain, they are initiated directly, and they come up unintentionally, and you cannot control them. You can potentially diminish them a little bit, but they come so fast. And we talk about 50 milliseconds to 300 milliseconds. 300 milliseconds is 0.3 seconds. That's not a lot. And that's a long time. We will do here small trainings based on, I think, about 200 to 300 milliseconds. And in the beginning, it might seem to be impossible, but I bet you will see. And I'm looking forward to the results that you're generating. When you're not trained, they are very difficult to mimic. And they only appear for the split of a second, for a moment. Now, a precise perception, well, it's not a guarantee for success, but a precise perception is giving you a solid foundation to have a successful presentation, for example, or conversation with a person. How is the person feeling you are talking to? Are they irritated? Are they getting angry? Do you see some emotions like grief or fear or surprise? When you know what you're looking for, then you can see it. So it always helps, of course, knowing what are the person's hot topics, what are they really looking for. And of course, because this is a presentation, I didn't have the time to go over that in detail, but I just wanted to know what would you like to know, and what effect are you having on him or her when you are talking about certain things. Well, of course, also there are emotional dynamics in a relationship. And I say also relationship for every conversation that we have. Then we are already in a kind of a relationship. And when you perceive accurately, you will get answers to these questions, and you will be also able to adapt to the situation. to a specific situation, whatever that situation may be. Now, I ask you now to take a piece of paper, because you are going to do the Read 14 test. Take a piece of paper and a pencil, and then draw 14 lines, because you will see 14 pictures. 14 lines, count them down, number them. So you know exactly, okay, first picture, second picture, and so on. I give you a little bit of time for that. Or you can also make numbers, but make it as easy for you as possible. And then prepare to see 14 faces and to identify the emotions that occur. And remember, we are not talking about full expression emotions that we potentially see in some movies, like that's not that kind of thing that we are going to see. We see these small changes, and I hope you can see the differences. So, number one, and I ask you, please read the seven emotions on the left side. They're always the same, always the same. So you just know them, and you do not have to look for them. And in a moment, I will push a button, and then you see for a short moment a change in the face. Oops. That jumped. That shouldn't jump. Make the number 1 a 0. That shouldn't jump the picture. I hope I didn't mess it up when I copied everything. Okay. Have you seen it? Write down what it was, one of these numbers or emotions. Number 3. Remember, that was 0.3 seconds. That's slow. Number 4. Number 5. It's not easy when you do it the first time. Number 6. Number 7. Number 8. Nine. This was almost a big expression. Number 10. Number 11. Number 12. $13. And $14. Good. I know that was difficult. Now here you see the results, and you can just go over it and check mark which ones are right and which are not. I'm giving a moment of time. So you're not ready? You're done? Because I'm just curious, and it's not about judging you or something. When you see that for the first time and you've never done that before, I would say the average is 50%. So no, you can you have two. Now you can unmute for a moment and just give me your results, just out of curiosity.
I got 2 questions.
Okay.
And I see that I mix content and grief and anger all the time.
Yeah.
I got 2.
Okay.
I had 7.
Mm-hmm. That's 50%. Yeah. Well, in fact, it's more because the first one, because I made a mistake, as it looks like I made a mistake when I copied it. So I had 2 times the same pictures and you didn't see the change. Okay. Anyone else? Good. So, as I said, difficult. We are used to see the whole expressions when someone is kind of going into fear, like this kind of, or when when actors overplay their emotions, then we can see them, which was typically in the 30s and 40s when you look at these movies and you see some of the actors kind of like of that, and they stayed for seconds in that. So that's not a micro expression anymore. Micro expression doesn't last longer than 0.5 seconds. If they last longer, the potential is high that it is played. And if it's longer than 3 seconds, it's definitely played. It's not real. So I just wanted to show you with that, that when we are not trained to see the emotions, and I didn't give you an introduction on that. So this was really difficult because usually I would need an hour to go over all the primary facial expressions and to show you exactly how they look like. Now you come on that test with the experience that you have from life without any theoretical background. And that's what happens when you see it. When people now come and say, well, I have a very good emotional connection and intuitive and so on, usually when someone is intuitive, I get 60% or so, but rarely more, really rarely more. So the results are usually between 50 and 60%, going down year by year, because this is a scientific test. We are measuring it. We have an online training tool. We're measuring it, what comes out without the names, but we see it's decreasing year by year. And it has to do because we are trained to see people online. So the 3-dimensional part is missing. And we do not see people from, let's say, 45, from other angles. and the light is different, so on. So a lot of information are just missing. And I don't talk about body language. It's just these seven emotions that you see here on this list are the emotions that are you can see all over the world. There's no difference. If you go to to Asia, it's there. Maybe it's a little bit more a bit more weaker or not so strongly expressed, but it's there. If you go to South America, then the potential is that you see much more because they usually are much more expressive, but it's always there. It's a general thing. Then we have cultural different expressions, and I don't want to go over them today because that would be just too much. Give me one day and I'll give a whole training on that. But for the moment, it's just giving you an insight of, oh, okay, that's difficult. And well, if you're interested, I can give you a link later on where you can train it. If I find the link, I need to look for that because I haven't used it for about 3 years. But there's a link there where you can train yourself just seeing these faces here. Maybe they have even more new faces, and just see the emotions there. And it's really, really important to be able to make a distinction. Now, it isn't. Why that? What does it to have to do with your clients? Because you build your relationships, your business networks. It is important for the people you make business with. You're building trust on that. You have potentially some influencers or people who influence decision makers. And I don't talk about the social media here. About people. When you have, for example, the PR manager of a company, he is an influencer for the CEO or for the CFO and so on. So the connections you build have a lot to do with your ability to build trust and to get, in this case here, to build your referrals. I think 2 days ago I saw from a person who is also working with MAP, I think about 2 or 2.5 years, something like that. He only has capital, he injected capital of about 70,000 over that time. And he has only around 88 or 90 referral partners. But with those partners, he made over $700,000. Okay. Fortunately, he seems to be in the right business networks where he meets people who have influence and who have the money and who trust him and who have the right connections. So the people he is making business with. And you see how important it is that you connect with the people who have the right networks and that you are building the trust there. So they say, okay, let's do that. We start slow, but if I get a feeling that this is working well, let's do it. So you're providing the value. Now, to get the referrals depends on your ability to build the relationships. Instead of facial expressions like these here, which here we can go through that. This is disgust, psychic disgust, psychological psychic disgust, surprise, wide open eyes, light open mouth. Here in the disgust, you see this. You see the mouth and you see the lines here around the nose. That's why I said, well, the contempt like this here, you can not see with the mask. Disgust, even if you're wearing a mask, you see the upper parts of this nasolabial area. So you can identify it because you also see the nose. Here you see the anger, you see the small eyes, you see in the middle of the face these small lines. And here you also see, not perfectly done, but you see the grief with the middle parts of the eyebrows lifted. The mouth can be part of it, but usually, because you can change your mouth like that, it's not a sign, 100% sign. But you want to have these kind of emotions with your clients when they're they do not need to fall in love with you, but it's like feeling happy or feeling joy or saying, okay, well, that's what we are looking for, or that's what you want. Now, there are three things I want to give you. Let's say the three verbs or the three things you need to know: how to detect emotions, how to distinguish them, and what to develop. Now, let's have a look at that. What are you going to detect? So you started already with the read 14, and I did want to do it before we go to that. The most common mask people are wearing or having in their face is the smile. But is there another emotion peeking through that smile? Which emotion was visible right before the smile or after, when they left, when they turned away, what you see typically in a restaurant? Now, let's do this one here. I show you again 3 micro expressions, and you decide for yourself, is it a social smile or is it true felt happiness? Duration here is also 300 milliseconds, 0.3 seconds. That was long. That was longer than the others, potentially 0.5. It also has to do with the speed of the computer and the processor, but So what did you think? I'll go back one time. I will look again. Social smiles or happiness?
I think it's a social smile.
I also think it's a social smile.
Yep. Perfect. Why?
It just looks put on. He doesn't. His eyes aren't happy.
Yeah. What makes the eyes shine to be happy? Because we see a specific movement here in the eyes, and look at the lower. How do you call that area in English? The lower eyelid. How does it change? From here to here. It seems as if the eye becomes smaller. But the critical thing is that there is no tension here in the eyelid. It's going up because the cheeks are going up. So that's why it looks like he is happy, but he's not. It's just a social smile, as you said correctly. So, number 2, social smile or felt happiness? What do you think?
Definite social smile.
Anyone else? What's the
Actually, there I can see it better. It does look like a real smile.
yeah.
Looks like a smile.
Yeah. Well, you see, there is more tension, and it's by intention that the people are of different ages, because we of course that's what we have in life too. We have here more tension in the lower eyelid. So let's go back. Just focus for a moment on the lower eyelid. It's coming up. It's almost horizontal. Don't look at the mouth. Okay. And number 3. Again. What do you think?
I can't see it change.
Sorry, I blinked when he smiled. I didn't see it.
Okay, let's play it again. Play it again, Sam.
I think it's happy.
Social smile.
Happiness. Happiness.
This one is difficult. You know why?
Yeah.
His eyelids come up, but as a result of his cheeks. This one is really difficult. The eyelids look almost horizontal. But when you go here and you watch these areas here, they just compress a little bit. But definitely this is a difficult example. And when you see something like that, always try to focus on the eyes, on the eyelids, not even on these parts here. Because even if the smile is not true, they appear. You know, for people over 40, these parts, I don't know how they're called. We call it Krähenfüße in German. They appear, these small things here. So, and they're not a sign for a true smile. But this one was difficult. This is Dirk Eylt, by the way, and this is his wife. So they were publishing together their first book, almost at the time when I was trying to write a similar one. But I think you will see it here also. You see the eyelids, you can see the corner of the mouth. Okay, you can fake that. But they say lowering. It comes down a bit. Most of the time it's this part. So these are reliable muscles. To be honest, of course, even when you focus on the eyes, most of the time, I would say 80% of the time, you would be right. But people with the guy that we just saw before, who has a little bit of a bigger face, with a bit more of fat in there in the cheeks, and then becomes more difficult. This comes from a TV show. He is a German, I think Turkish actor. He was presenting a movie, and the moderator who was asking questions, he was asking him stupid questions. And why? I mean, you look at him, how he looks here and here. You look at his eyes and you look at his mouth. So when someone looks at you like that, you just go 2 or 3 steps back, because he's pressing his lips, and you can see it here. He's pressing his lips. He is more pressing his eyes, closing the eyes, and the look is more like a. He's almost shooting some arrows of light towards the moderator. And now here's a social smile. In the beginning, when the picture was standing, here's a true smile. That was a true one. But here, you see just a movement here, but you don't see a big movement here. And he's even lowering his eyeballs after that. While here, he is keeping eye contact with the person or with whoever it was on the opposite. Well, we could say the eyes never lie. Good, yeah. Success is within your reach.
My name is Valeria Winkler.
Okay.
I'm a real estate investor. And I just finished the training with Christian, and I have to say, it has been really.
I go over that. The reason why I have these here, because these kind of presentations are built also to build credibility. And well, she is late. And it helps, people who don't know me to get kind of a trust. Well, the next point is then to this. I'm on the wrong here. The next thing is to make a distinction. Could you please mute, Petronella?
Sorry.
The next point is the principle of making an observation and interpretation. And usually when people watch other people, they're going directly into interpretation. So, and I give you an example. I don't have it here because that's in a different folder somewhere, but just came into my mind. You're sitting at McDonald's and you see a woman, with some kind of, a little bit too much fat on her body, and she is eating a hamburger. And on her opposite, there's a, let's say, 10 or 12-year-old. And you're looking at them, and you see her just, eating, and the small one has, he is enjoying it, and the woman doesn't enjoy it. And other people around, they're kind of looking at the woman and, joking about her. And that's what happens, interpretation. What no one knows is that she has to force herself to eat parts of that hamburger. And sometimes she's leaving, going to the toilet to get it out again. Because it's, for her, it's a disgusting situation. Not the situation with the nephew, but she doesn't like that, and she tries to get rid of weight, and she doesn't love herself enough, and so on. So what people a lot of times do is to go directly into interpretation from what they see. And tell me what you see. So we see a situation where a man is touching a woman on the workplace. Maybe you remember the other woman I had on that screen, where I had four situations where there was also a woman and another person, talking to the woman. He was touching her in a total different way. What you see here, you could see, well, we don't know what is really going on. Well, what we see here, do you see it when I'm enlarging it? I hope so. What you see here, you see the middle part of the eyebrows moving up, which is a 95% sign of grief, which is almost impossible to fake. I cannot do it. My wife can do it. But usually people can't. There are only few who can do that. However, she is in grief, but we don't know why. Is it because that's sexual harassment? Is it because she is really in a situation of grief and he is just, telling, hey, come on, and maybe they're friends? We just don't know. It's very dangerous to go directly into interpretation. But in fact, something is wrong here. That's what we know. Okay. We could also use this picture here and have a look there. And you see there, the situation is, I would say, worse. When you look at her facial expression, you see here the anger in the middle. When you have these signs here in the middle between the eyebrows. Even here, this part of the muscles is really coming into tension. The way she is looking at his hands is also very clear. And there is, if I could lean out of the window, I would say there is some disgust here in the face. This is definitely, I would say, a sign of a potential sexual harassment, although it is only a picture. It is not a movement. We don't really know what it is. So it is also only an interpretation. In order to be sure about something, we need to have at least 3 signs from 2 different channels. And that's sometimes difficult. So we would see the movement. We see here the sign of the eyes. We see the sign here. And potentially we would see some body language when she's getting stiff in that specific moment. Then we have 3 signs from two different channels, or even from 3. So it is not so easy to see and identify something like this. Let's go back to that presentation. Now, we can also have a price talk example. When you're a salesperson and you're telling your customer the price and he is showing a facial expression, what would you see? That one was nice. He was just opening his mouth. Let's go back. And a little bit opening his eyes. That was surprise. Usually surprise will be much more like, oh, but here in this situation, you're in a negotiation, you see that, then you know he is surprised. You could address that. You could address that softly, something like, oh, I get a feeling that you seem a little bit surprised. What is the point that surprised you? So you can ask the client. Or this one is another facial expression. Ooh, it's an interesting number that she has on her face. Where does that come from? Did you see it? Let's go back. Again. So that was disgust. Usually disgust, you see it on both sides. Sometimes you can see it on one side. It could also be contempt. But since both lips went up, it's disgust. So whatever you said as a salesperson, she was disgusted by it. Very difficult to turn that around. Disgust is like a killer. And people, when someone who's your client is showing you that, you almost lost. It's like 98% you lost. You can see the movement here also in this area around the nose, typical sign of disgust. Even if she's only using one part of the mouth, I'm using that most of the time too. So I rarely use both sides. So when something needs to be really bad, then my both lips go up. But most of the time I use only one side. I just trained that, and it's unconsciously happening. You see here anger. That's really anger. Pressing the lips, getting here the lines in between, the eyes becoming smaller. And you see disgust. This is real disgust. You see here also what is happening here in the eyes, in the midst of the eyebrows, and you see here the mouth. So this is a strong, full expression, which you usually do not see. Or full expression of pain and subtle expression of pain. Why is this important? You see here full expression of pain. Oh, that hurts. And here, like, it's more softer. Because price information is processed in the pain disgust center of the brain. That's why clients are showing this kind of emotion. So when they say that, oh, that's my limit, could be a bigger expression or a smaller. So you see, when you ask yourself, why should I learn about facial expressions? Here's another answer. You need to know what your client is showing you, so you know what to ask or what to say or how to negotiate. Without that information, you're lost. I love this one. This was in Dubai.
Hi, I'm Dave Crane, and I've seen Christian Semlich on stage. I followed his progress. I followed his programs, and the guy is a genius. If you want to communicate effectively, if you want to know how words really have an impact on people, I can't think of many people better than this guy. Follow him, go to his events, and make sure you do business with him. Christian is the real deal. I can't recommend him highly enough. Make sure you can contact and connect with Christian Semlich.
Thank you, Dave. I really highly respect him. He is a well-known speaker and presenter in Dubai. He is not giving testimonials easily. We have been working 3 times when I was in Dubai together. So I really love this testimonial because he really brings it on the point. If you think the same way, that would be, of course, something different. But I mean, that was his way of thinking. Now, what else? You need to develop something. You need to develop your communication skills. Because when you see an emotional expression in a face, you still don't know what to say. And one possibility is to, let's say, to express what you think you saw. You mirror the person. But before we go to that, I have found a very interesting experiment. And you see, I think 8 cabins, you just through the window and you see people there. And they're acting in a very strange way. It's an experiment. 18 people, 18 boxes, and 1 question. What's going on in them?
Ja, vielleicht schizophren oder nervös oder
Schizophrenia,
Angstzustände,
anger, fear.
Vielleicht ist er einfach ein bisschen tüdelig.
Depression.
Er hört Stimmen.
You hear something, voices. The people you saw outside were psychiatrists and psychologists, specialists, as we would say. Now look at that. Okay. They were listening to a soccer game. That's how men react on that, if they like it. But if you only see the expression, not knowing what causes it, it is difficult. It is very, very difficult to judge. And that's the reason why I love that. When you see everything, so when you hear something going on, and it's even not necessary to understand, because the voice is transporting also emotions. If someone is angry or if someone is sad and so on, the voice is really a fantastic transporter. But without that information, it gets difficult. So facial expression never tell us why an emotion occurs. And that's very, very important. That's even, I would say, mission critical. And we often forget that. So when you see something like that, you go in resonance with what they show you. And you can say something nonverbal, like showing a thumbs up, or you can do a mirror statement where you say, I get an idea that you seem to be whatever. And you never use things like contempt or disgust or so, but more you just weaken it down. You just try to make it as social as possible. You could also make an interpretation, say, what I perceive is this and this, or if I am correct, you are irritated, but maybe I'm wrong. Can you please explain? And then you give over to the client. So there are also possibilities to see, to know what to say. And I think it is really important that we see the true color of a person, because we have so many versions of expressing ourselves. The way we hide, the way the mask we wearing, the way we behave. There's a lot of things going on that we usually do not perceive consciously. But the more you go inside of it, the less it's guessing. And you saw with the Read 14 test, okay, we only had 13, but we had, a little bit more than 50% was the best result that we got. So training to see facial expressions and to get the right information is something we never learn. We don't learn it from our parents. We don't learn it in school. We never learn it usually. We can learn it by ourselves when we are reading books or when we are looking specific TV documentation, but it's still difficult. Most of these things we see are not scientifically based. That's what we have here. 1,200 studies and meta-studies. So what we get here from this guy is perfect. Well, okay. He is a real estate agent in Sydney, and he was very happy because I was serving him the right way, giving a testimonial for that. I think for me, the most important words he used was trust and integrity. And when we use that, looking at faces, at reactions, then then people start to trust us. And then we can also use things like MAP and so on, because a lot of people are in fear using systems like MAP or Palm or whatever they are called. That's mission critical. Beg your pardon that I do not. Let me play it just because I like the Australian English. And he is I love him. I like him.
Thank you to Mr. Christian Semlich. I recently had the great privilege of hearing Mr. Semlich present at Glenn Tweedle's Total Success Summit here in Sydney, amongst people such as Joel Bauer and Arnold Schwarzenegger, to name but a few, and used it to present a very compelling message of the absolute necessity for truth and integrity and vision and clarity. And I found it very, very helpful. But the reason that I'm wanting to say thank you is because I had a couple of questions relating to the presentation, and I was able to send him a message on Facebook, and I found him to be a complete gentleman, and he's absolutely true to his word. And for anybody who's in his field of endeavour and who are wondering, should I get involved with this man as a coach? Based on the dealings that I've had with him to date, I'd say you've got nothing to lose. He's a man of integrity. He's a man of some considerable passion. And based on the dealings I've had with him so far, I'd have no hesitation in recommending him generally.
So I think that's the point. When we are, especially here in this area with generating passive income or make passive money and so on, a lot of people are in fear about what we are doing, how we are helping. Are we trustful? Are we trustworthy? Are we coming from integrity and so on? So when we are having, for example, one-on-one consultations, or when we're doing Zoom meetings and then we are with them, it is so incredibly important that we watch people, that we watch their emotions. It's not just the word they are saying, and it's not just always important what we are saying, but also what is going on the other side. How do we make them feel? And we can see that. Just have it as big as possible on your screen, and then you see people's reaction. When something is going on, just pause and say, it seems that you do not like it the way I said, or it seems that you are irritated. Is there something I can help you with, or do you miss something? Just ask questions, and it makes a huge, huge difference. And that's the reason why I really wanted to make this presentation bigger than just showing a few facial expressions. So I think it's important that what I show here is based on a scientifically proven process. It is not just something I do by accident or so. I wrote a book, Read Your Client, and I was building a system on that. So that was the foundation of it. I do not sell the book here, not at all. It's just to show you what is, let's say, the back of that whole thing. So I thank you for being here, for listening, for participating. And as I said, I never wanted to to test you in a way that you feel bad about it. It's more that you realize, of course, in a lot of situations, you can trust your intuition, but still remind yourself it is still wild guessing. 50% is probably accurate, and we don't know why. We don't know the reasons why another person is reacting in a specific way. And when we have that in mind, we can build better relationships, private, business, with our children, with our loved ones, with those who we are connected with. And that makes a huge difference and has a lot of impact on those people. So that's the reason why I made it longer. So we are at an hour almost since we started. And I really hope that you see things a bit differently. I will put it up on YouTube and you can go through it again and again. So you see the facial expressions of the Read 14 test, or 13 in this case. And then you can go through it and see, oh, okay, that was it. Because then, of course, on the video, you can go back and forth and you see it. And that makes a difference for you, I'm sure. So I'm going to end the recording and opening for questions now.